Hey everybody, welcome to another very special episode of the Fallout Lorecast. This is our monthly Patreon get-together, and this week we have myself and 4 other patrons, Tier 4 patrons and higher, every month get a chance to hang out and visit and have conversations about awesome, cool stuff about Fallout. So this month we have some people who joined us last month and some new people. So we've got, let's just go down the list. We have Mustang. Mustang is here. How's it going, Mustang?
Going good.
Good. And then we've also got Ryuko. First time, right, Ryuko?
Yep, this will be the first time for me.
First time. Welcome. We have to haze you in some sort of way. Right? In the thing? No, this isn't a fraternity. I guess we don't have to do that.
I mean, we still can if we want to.
Well, we still can't want to.
Kind of fun.
And then coming back this week is Woman on Fire. Welcome back.
Hello.
Heyo. Hello. I think you said hello, but my brain went heyo.
Plug it.
And then Aperture Flash in the middle of driving a truck again with all sorts of wonderful noise sounds and honking.
Heyo!
Heyo.
I would honk, but I'm going to waste it.
Yeah, they probably frown on that, huh?
Yeah, they
Kinda.
have to be back.
Yeah, welcome back. So this month, every month we spend a lot of time talking about all sorts of crazy stuff in the Discord, as usual, and this month was no different. Although, I think this month on the Discord things went a little bit more interestingly. I think there's a whole lot of really good conversation and a lot of, connecting going on between people, which is super cool. And in the Patreon Discord, we were discussing what to potentially talk about this month, and we came up with the topic of favorite companions. So, favorite companions, and there's a lot to go over, so we're not going to cover everybody, but everybody who's guesting on the show today has picked who their favorite companion is, or who they would like to discuss at least. And we're going to go over details, maybe some personal experiences in the game, going over those, situations with the companions. And as we do this, we're streaming live on Twitch and on Mixer and on YouTube and on Facebook, all over the place. So this is going to be a regular occurrence, and usually Monday evenings. So if you ever want to jump in, go to twitch.tv/robotsradio and you can tune in for this live. So welcome to all of our live viewers. And you may hear some weird sounds pop up if I end up having to use the Twitch audio. So enjoy that as well. But let's just dive right into this. Let's start this off with Mustang. Mustang, who is your companion to discuss today? Who are you bringing?
So, my personal favorite companion out of all of them across all games is Deacon from Fallout 4. Just
Deacon.
because of his mystery. That's really the only reason why I love him so much.
Okay, now, as with any of these topics, there's always going to be some people who have way more experience than I do on certain things, and then there's going to be people who have never even played Fallout 4. So, can you give us a little bit of a background about Deacon, how you come across him, who he is?
Yeah, so Deacon is one of the leaders of the Railroad in Fallout 4. And, he's just like a huge mystery. He admits all the time that he is a chronic liar. So basically everything he talks about kind of has to be taken with a grain of salt, because you never know if he's telling the truth or not.
Right.
He says he's a synth, and he said he was one of the first synths to escape the Institute, and he was one of the original founders of the Railroad. But, all of this could be lies. He gets like a new face every so often.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's pretty much it for him.
Yeah, I remember him having kind of this, cool guy vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
that immediately makes him a little bit less trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, you're too cool for your own good, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's also kind of funny, too. One of my favorite facts about him is up until you meet him in the Railroad, he could actually be seen in a lot of scenes that are pretty big in the main story.
Uh-huh.
and just kind of like disguised in the background. Like he's there when you first go into Diamond City. He walks around Good Neighbor all the time. He is in Bunker Hill sometimes.
Interesting.
And it says that I'm on the Gamepedia Fallout. It says that there's also a small post set up with a pair of binoculars, water, and a railroad sign meaning ally. So I guess it's believed that Deacon set up this post to watch the Soul Survivor when he got out.
Oh, very cool.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Right
so
after that, when you come out of the vault, he's stalking you.
yeah. So when we go into these kinds of episodes, I leave a lot up to you guys to be able to draw from your experiences and a little bit of your research. And I haven't spent the time really looking into Deacon yet, so it's kind of fun for me too because I get to learn things as well. Now, I did interact with him in the games, but I didn't realize that he was like sneaky and behind the scenes so much. That's pretty cool. So did any of you other guests today have any experiences with Deacon? Did you guys notice any of that about him? Say that again, Aperture? You're a little quiet.
Deacon glitched out for me constantly. He changes outfits, but he would do it literally every single time I looked away from him.
He's really good.
That's a feature. That's not a glitch.
And like 1 out of 3 times he would just be naked with just his wig.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, he would just be in his skivvies and wig and sunglasses. So, you know,
that seems like an innocent outfit for him, I would think. He just walks around in his boxers and a wig. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's totally an
Everybody
alpha
wants a creepy,
play.
crazy guy.
Yeah, that's totally an alpha play. That's the like, heck, I'm so freaking confident. I just have to show up in skivvies and a wig. Screw all you guys.
like honestly, the most alpha part of that is the fact he's not wearing shoes. But,
Yeah, I don't know if you want to walk around the wasteland without shoes on. That sounds very dangerous.
A good way to get tetanus.
Yeah, and like everything else ever.
I mean, he's a synth, so maybe he doesn't get diseases. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not.
If he really is, we don't really know. Yeah.
because he doesn't drop a synth part when you kill him.
Oh, that's
Oh,
interesting.
you're right. You're right.
And I've killed him like 3 times, so.
Brutal.
That is
Shot
pretty
in the
brutal.
heart.
Well, you know, I'm a completionist.
Sometimes you just gotta try and kill everybody in a game and just see what happens, right?
Right.
Well,
Right,
even
right.
I think everybody's done that at least once.
Line. Yeah.
So Mustang,
I
why?
always had to pop up in that. Or, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I was gonna say, whenever I ran like the Brotherhood or the Institute quest line, I always had to pop a stealth boy before I went in to kill the railroad because I didn't want them to know it was me.
Oh no!
And I'm aware that they're pixels, but I just couldn't.
You couldn't betray them to their faces. You had to do it invisible. Oh, that's
I have
great. That's great. That's what I love about these games, because you come to really care about certain characters and their opinions, and then you're forced to make these really difficult decisions. And sometimes you just have to do something like that, and then, you know, I mean, hey, I guess that's a good way to do it, but it's definitely underhanded. Like, I always feel bad just looking at a character and, like, getting to the point where I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna kill you now. And they don't know it yet, and then I just, like, shoot them in the head. And, of course, they never die on the first hit. And there's always that response of, like, hey, stop that! And then they, like, try to get their gun out as they, like, back away from you. And it's like, I just shot you in the head at point-blank range, and now you're just like, stop that? Like,
Stop it.
stop it!
That was rude.
So, Mustang, what other thoughts did you have about Deacon? What's one of the reasons why? Is he your absolute favorite? Is that what's going on here?
Probably is my absolute favorite, yeah, just because of his mystery. There's some conversation you unlock with him as, you know, your reputation with him goes up. And I can't remember what he says exactly, but he basically tells you that he is a chronic liar and to never believe anything he says, which is like kind of weird because you spent all this time getting him to trust you, and that's how he repays your trust with telling you that you shouldn't trust him.
Right, but if he's a chronic liar, then can you trust that?
I-
Oh, no!
That's a good question.
Now we're in an unending loop, because if he is a chronic liar, and he says he's a chronic liar, then it means he's not a chronic liar. But that's not true. It's a paradox. We're stuck.
We're stuck.
Well, I guess that means that we can't. I don't know. I don't know what to do about that.
I don't know. Just
We
don't
need
look
two
into
of
it too
him.
hard.
We need one that always lies and one that always tells the truth. And we need to ask the one that always tells the truth what the other one would say. Right?
Or you
Yeah.
could just ask what 2 + 2.
Right?
Yeah. I don't know. Deacon would probably come up with something like, "Don't you know the answer to that, idiot?"
Yeah.
Probably when you
That
directly
California
answer, he'd probably just
accent.
berate you.
What I love about you is, like, one of the first things that led me to never say this note that I'm reading you right now. This could kill me on the spot because I'm a Sith. And then, like, you have the option to read it to him, and it doesn't tell him on the spot. They were
Because
going
it's the note that basically says you can't trust everyone.
Yeah. That's funny.
That's pretty good. I think that's going to be... So, one of the things I've talked about with my coworkers at work is that as you get older, eventually you reach a point where you can just become, like, eccentric. Nobody really cares anymore. I think that I've been creating this list of things I'm going to do when I hit this, like, eccentric age. I don't know when that is, but well, I guess we'll know when I start doing these things. That's going to be one of them. I'm going to hand people little notes and say, never read this out loud to me. I will self-destruct. And then I'm just going to walk away.
on the CIA super agent.
All right, Mustang, you have anything else on Deacon you wanted to go over, or is that it?
I think that's it for me.
Cool. Okay. Okay. Let's move down the line. Ryuko, welcome you. This is your first time here. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Hey, thanks for supporting the show and for being active in the community. I'm always amazed when people will actually devote time and money into something like this, and it really is, helps my dreams come true, which is super great. So thank you so much. But before we get all, oh, go ahead. You can fawn over
nice
me.
Having a community of sorts that just kind of comes together to discuss all this stuff that we all seem to really like the Bethesda in general. So it's kind of it's nice to have some people that I can discuss with, and even just outside of the games, having just people to talk to just in general. It's a pretty good community that we have, I think.
Oh yeah. I'm always floored by how awesome everybody is. But we could go on about that forever. But who's your companion? Who are you bringing to the table?
Well, I had to decide between two different companions. And I finally settled on Kate from Fallout 4 as my personal favorite.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now remind everybody who Kate is and
So,
what's
Kate
going on with her.
she is the Irish, Irish sounding, I should say, companion that you meet in the combat zone, which is just outside of Diamond City in Fallout 4. You can take her on as a companion when you interrupt a fight that she's in the middle of. She's as a cage fighter, and when you clear out the raiders that are actually in the combat zone, then you get the option to more or less take on her contract, which is being held by the proprietor of the combat zone, Tommy Lonigan.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take over this contract, then she becomes your follower, and from there on, it's just however you decide to devote to developing the relationship, whether it's a positive or a negative way. Most of the time, I devote it into a kind of a positive way. And as you learn more about her background, that's kind of what I look at as the developers putting in this character that kind of humanizes the game. You learn about her background. Her parents were abusive to her. Everything from locking her in a shed to breaking her legs.
Yeah.
And as you develop this relationship with her, the further you get into her kind of her companion storyline, you learn that the only reason that they kept her around was so then when the day that she turned 18, when she had her 18th birthday, they turned around and sold her to slavers.
Right.
and she was with these slavers for around about 5 years, stealing small sums of bottle caps and pilfering them away as much as possible, so she could eventually buy her own freedom. So she buys her way out of slavery, and then ends up wandering around for a while until eventually she ends up at the combat zone, and that's when your character, the sole survivor, meets her and can take her on as a companion. So
Sorry, go ahead.
I just look at the developers putting someone like Kate into the game to kind of, as you learn more about her past and the struggles she has, her addiction to psycho that she has, kind of humanizes, because everybody has an addiction of some sort. Everybody's got their vices. So it kind of adds in something that someone can relate to. We're used to seeing around in the wasteland, we're used to seeing, death claws and mirelurks, and this is kind of I think it brings more of a human element. As with all these other companions, most of the other companions that you can have, kind of brings more of a human element to the games themselves.
Yeah, and I remember coming across her, and I remember there's something about her. She's very on edge. She's very, like guarded, I guess you could say, for good reason, because the world has dealt her such a rough hand.
Oh yeah. And
then the idea that you would show her kindness, and I remember she was one of the companions that I went back to for a while and would develop. And let me explain a little bit about my experience with companions. This is one of the other reasons why I thought this would be a really fun episode to do with you guys, is because a lot of people, since I've been doing the show, I've learned that a lot of people really, really plug into the companions and the relationships as a primary reason why they enjoy these games. And I've always seen it as more of a secondary thing. Oftentimes when I come across a companion, I can kind of take them or leave them. And most of the time, for most companions, I consider them more of like a gameplay benefit, to have someone else who's good at something along with you to kind of help you along the way. But there are certain companions that I've come across that appeal to me more on kind of a personality sort of way. And I think I felt really bad for her. I think I felt like the idea that I could show her kindness in a way that she never experienced, and show her that the world isn't all bad, was actually a really cool dynamic with her character.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like a pity thing with when I first. It was more of this person, as much as your character in the game goes through, this person has been dealt a pretty rough hand with everything that's happened in their life. Maybe I can help them through their issues and, be a benefit to this person who has never had the beneficial party in their life.
Right. Yeah, I had a very similar feeling about that. Plus, she was pretty freaking tough, so it was kind of nice to have her along and just like kicking people's butts.
Some of the comments that she pops off with, just going through the game, just listening to her talk back behind you, it's just like this companion is just a riot to listen to sometimes.
Yeah. What about the rest of you guys? Do you guys have any experience with her?
Yeah, I liked hanging out with her because I thought she was a bad A.
Yeah.
Especially when you first go into the combat zone and she's all pissed that you interrupted her fight, and that her whoever her contract's with, I can't remember his name, but
Tommy Lonigan.
Yeah, that's right, Tommy. She was pissed at him because Tommy wouldn't let her fight anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually, on that note, there's actually a pretty unseen bit. There is some unused dialogue to Tommy that implies that after a certain point, you could have actually gone back to the combat zone, participated in cage fights.
Oh, that would have been cool.
That would have been really
it got cut from the game, and they kind of implied it in the trailer, too.
Yeah, it would be kind of like an arena thing from Oblivion or something like that.
Yeah, or the pit from the DLC.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed that as like a little diversion in games where you can just go, like, well, I'm gonna go try and take this guy out. Let's do the next one.
Never saw you as a cage fighter, though.
Oh, we've all got secrets about how we spend our time on the weekends. Wait, do we? Is that a thing?
Does this come before or after the weekend short stay?
Clearly after. That's part of my That's part of my cage fighter gear. Just so you guys know, I wore my weekend shorts yesterday, Saturday. Oh, and then, and others. Okay, so weekend clothing story part 2. When I mentioned my weekend shorts, I also mentioned that the reason I bought them was to go on a cruise, and so they're like boat shorts originally, and then I also have some shirts that are like boat shirts, and they look like everything every like 50-plus-year-old man in Florida wears on the weekends. You know, like palm trees and all sorts of crap on them. So I was like, you know, if I'm going to go on a boat with a bunch of retired people, I better look like all of them. So I've got some weekend shirts also. And I went to a wedding yesterday, and of course, Florida wedding, bright and sunny. And it wasn't the whole wedding. I got to go to the reception. It was like a reception thing at the end for everybody, but the wedding was smaller. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna wear one of my weekend shirts to the wedding. And my wife was like, really? And I'm like, yep. And she's like, I guess it really doesn't matter in the long term if anything, does it? And I was like, nope. And it's ironic to me, but nobody else is gonna know it. So.
I like how your wife is just like, you know, nothing matters. Like,
She just goes along with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've been watching.
It's not even a surprise anymore, is it?
No, it's not a surprise. She knows me. She knows me pretty well. And I think I've taken a... Go ahead.
I love that you have boomer camouflage.
Boomer camouflage?
You said it was to blend in with all the old people in Florida.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of Rick and Morty, too.
A different kind of boomer, I bet.
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of Rick and Morty too, and Rick is very like, you know, like, the universe is infinite, nothing means anything, so, you know, why not wear boat clothes? What's it really matter?
Well, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
That viewpoint.
So let's pull it back around to Kate. Anything else you want to bring up about Kate, Ryoko? Is there was she just that much of an emotional connection to you, and that's why you would consider her your favorite?
Well, like I was saying, I had a choice between two of them. The other one was Cass from New Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of that same humanizing, you know, quality, but with Katie, it was just something that, you know, can't really put all into one sentence. Really, it's just the humanizing aspect of it. You know, the fact that, okay, well, this person is obviously, even as you get closer to the end of her companion quest line, she's taking the effort to battle what she is fighting, and she eventually comes around to looking to you as a friend and a companion,
mm-hmm.
and less as a boss, as someone who's just, you know, who she's just working for. So that's kind of the, you know, the character development is more the you know, the whole aspect of it in itself. The draw to you, yeah.
Yeah. There's something about, and I get philosophical on these things all the time, but there's something about when a human being is actually capable of making a distinct change, an intentional change to the way they see the world, the way they make decisions, the way they change things, you know, like that I find always very powerful, because it's very difficult and it's actually very rare in the real world. At least in my experience, it seems like most of the time we are all just kind of on autopilot. And every so often we hit a moment in our lives where we go, no, I'm going to be different now. I have a reason to be different. And to see that come to life in a character like hers in a video game is actually really cool, because that's a legitimate, like, story arc character development moment that we often don't get unless we're watching like a really good TV show or reading a really good book. So I definitely think there's something there.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's move on to Woman on Fire. Who are you bringing to this show today? Who's your companion? Hancock.
Yep.
Everybody's favorite ghoul with an awesome outfit.
Of course.
Of course. All right. So tell us about Hancock, and for anybody who hasn't met Hancock, you've probably seen him. He's in a lot of the you know, like these pop figures and artwork, things like that. See an old-timey Civil War outfit on a ghoul, then that's who we're talking about.
War.
Yeah. Well, not Civil War.
Revolutionary
I mean, it's a revolutionary. You're right. Revolutionary
War.
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 Not Civil War. Silly.
When I went to Boston,
silly
one of the
Tom.
highlights was going to the old State House and actually seeing that that coat is actually there.
Oh, nice. So give us some background on Hancock. Tell the audience what's going on with him.
He's really kind of all swagger, and he, right off the bat, stabs a guy who's trying to shake you down. So that's the first impression you get.
Another badass.
You get him as a companion by completing Bobby No Nose's quest. And since there's some pretty heavy-duty mirelurks and stuff in there, it's kind of harder to get him until you're a little bit higher level.
Mm-hmm.
The first playthrough, I didn't really get Hancock at all. Just the swagger really turned me off. I wasn't into it. That was initially the impression that kind of stuck with me. And on my second playthrough, I was really trying to kind of try everything. That sounds wrong.
Wait, what?
So I took Hancock as a companion.
Oh,
That, I
we're
think,
getting
was
some
really-
feedback from Reiko. Sorry, say that
My
again.
bad, sorry, that's my fault.
It's okay.
So what I was saying, on my second playthrough, I really wanted to kind of try more things and branch out, and that time around, I took Hancock as a companion. And I think that that's kind of the secret to Hancock, is that what you see isn't actually... So some of the characters, like Piper or Preston, they're pretty straightforward. You know what you're getting right off the bat, and he's not like that at all.
Right.
And
yeah, Piper's very like,
Yeah.
hey, this is my mission. This is what I'm doing. Are you coming with me? Or not?
Right.
And
Yeah.
Preston is very much, as we mentioned on the previous talk, the absolutely worst faction in the game. Preston himself. So you know what you're getting with that.
Yeah, but when you really start digging into Hancock and when he really starts revealing things to you, what you really find out is that a lot of his swagger is very affected and kind of cultivated for others. And so kind of like what Reiko was saying, he's my favorite because a lot of what goes on with him is stuff that I really relate to, really personally, that I've had personal experience with.
Okay.
And there's this really, really well-developed character arc there that I really love.
So the having to put on a show, kind of having to put on a different character for people, is that what you're talking about? Like not being able to be
not
yourself?
entirely. Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Like, well, one of the things that, like I said, I brought notes this time.
Awesome.
One of the things that he reveals is that he took on that whole Hancock persona in an event to kind of reinvent himself after what he was considering a lot of failures. Failures was his inability to save the ghouls in Diamond City from his brother when his brother was running for mayor. And story, we can see that he tried so hard. This whole thing is really pretty radical. He wasn't a ghoul yet, and he was totally going against popular opinion to do what he knew to be right. And he was trying to protect the marginalized community. And I love that, And I feel so strongly about standing up for people who are marginalized or vulnerable in some way. And I have, people in my family who are part of marginalized communities. And,
Right.
That's like my mission. And so, I really get that.
Yeah.
But then on the flip, and then on the other side of that, so then leaves Diamond City and gets to Good Neighbor. It's being run by named Vic, and he shows all the people living there how to stand for themselves and basically organizes a coup. This problems violently because he's a product of the wasteland, and that's just how you solve problems in the wasteland.
Right. When all you have is a hammer,
Yeah,
everything's
yeah.
a nail. Yeah.
Yeah, but despite that, he has this really solid moral code side of the oppressed, which to me is just really, really admirable. And when you dig in even further, he really reveals despite all of these big actions and all of these really good things he's done, he still feels like a failure.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of personal struggle over that because he's trying to come to terms with his own guilt. Never his fault to begin with.
Yeah, that's very dynamic.
And that's
now,
another, yeah.
This is all very
Okay.
interesting to me because I didn't actually take any time to really get to know Hancock. In fact, he was a character who, on my most complete playthrough, I just kind of shrugged off. You know, I met him, I didn't really follow through with much in the way of really bringing him along anywhere, expanding that out at all. And then a few years later, jumped back into the game and spent a little bit more time with him, but never really got to know him. So this is actually very interesting for me because, you know, like I like to admit on the show, I don't know everything about the lore. So getting that perspective from you and learning more about him is actually very interesting. Yeah, and that idea that you're fighting for marginalized groups and you're just doing the best you can with what you have is still valuable, even if it's not necessarily the best way to do it. At least your intentions are good.
Yeah.
Cool. So, do you have anything else on that, or do we want to open this up to everyone else?
Well, I had one more thing.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
So another big reveal, and I had to go back and double check this one because I wasn't positive it was like in my own head canon or whatever if this was really said. And I did confirm it on one of the wikis. So he actually knew what it was going to do to him. He knew it was going to turn him ghoul.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the only way to escape yourself is to become a member of that same class that you're trying to save. And it's like that didn't really, he wanted to solve, didn't. And when he cracks jokes and stuff, a lot of his humor is very self-deprecating, and he makes a lot of comments about his face. And this is something else that I really relate to. I often really just don't feel good about myself and the way I look, and so I'm the first one to crack a joke about it before somebody else can do it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
It gives you control of it by
It does.
acknowledging it. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So this relates to something else that just happened at the wedding I went to yesterday. Another real life story. We walk in and the wedding's already happened. They're having the reception, and then they're having like this post 2-hour like extended reception that's open to more people. So we show up right at the time it starts, that part starts, thinking like we're gonna walk in, there's already gonna be a bunch of people in here, and we're gonna see other people we know who are showing up and like coming into the reception. Well, we walk in and it's empty. The rest of the reception has gone extra long and everyone's in the other room and we can't go in there yet. So we're just sitting out in the like foyer an extra 20 minutes waiting for them to wrap up. We can hear the sound of like the speeches and those kinds of things. And just awkwardly waiting there going, okay, everyone's eventually gonna come out of this room, and they're just gonna see the two of us who are, and we haven't seen a lot of these people in years because people came from out of town and stuff. And it's gonna be super awkward. So I jokingly said to my wife, you know what we should do is we should go stand in the room that everyone's gonna go into as they leave the dining room, and like awkwardly be the two people welcoming them into the next section of the party. And my wife was like, oh, you'd really enjoy that, wouldn't you? And I was like, yes, but no. And she's like, what? And I'm like, no, well, the reason why that makes sense to me is because instead of just being awash in the awkward situation, I'm now taking control of the awkwardness, and I'm now like you're saying, pointing it out, you know, like actually being in control and making it my own thing. So it's the same kind of psychology, right? Like if you point a thing out that you're uncomfortable with, then in some way you're not worried that someone else is going to point it out to you. So it doesn't hurt as much. Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Pitch Perfect. The one character calls herself Fat Amy because if she doesn't do it, then everybody else will.
Right.
It's like, yeah.
You're just taking control of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense. So let's open this up to the rest of the group. Anybody else have any specific memories of doing things with crap, cool face? What's his name? Hancock. Words just fall out of my head today.
I think he's an absolute legend, and when I did my huge melee build, it was really, really nice having him as a companion because he's like one of the only ones that doesn't get mad with the mass amounts of psycho that I was taking.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it was,
I'm
it
sure
was
he was
bad. It was
giving you
like
some too.
just about any time I saw anyone remotely aggressive toward me, boom, there goes the psycho.
Wow. Wow. I am almost 100% non-drugs when I play Fallout games.
I'm too, which makes
Is
me
that-
happy
is that
to run
weird?
around with Hancock.
I tried not being a nice person in some of the playthroughs I have, but it just usually doesn't work for me. I'm just gonna go back to being a nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, it never dawns on me that like, oh, I should amp up something in order to get through this really tough fight. Usually I just try to figure it out like mechanically without actually having to boost my stats in any way. I don't know, maybe I don't know if that's weird, but that seems to be the way I do it. Yeah. I'm sure it's easier if you do the other way, and then you go through the withdraw and you just make sure you deal with it, but...
Yeah, I always try to find the more technical way to get through something instead of, okay, well, I'm just gonna pick all these drugs and just blast my way through all of it.
Yeah. So anybody else have any experiences with Hancock? Did you guys actually follow through with the quest lines and things with him?
Well,
I don't really have his own quest line. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Capture?
I found Hancock's response to Picture to be very interesting. I liked that he responded very negatively, but still in a professional manner when you talked about picking him art in a positive light. Because at that point, you're still just basically a contractor for him. So he's got chops from there too, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, again, I don't have a whole lot of experience with that side of it. Woman on Fire, did you have something else? Or Rayco?
Oh no, I'm just saying I've never actually don't think I've ever actually done a playthrough with him as a companion. I've always got the picture of that first time that you meet him in my head. Every time I was like, okay, well, it's pretty BA guy, but I've never actually used him as a companion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
If you like Kate, I think you'll like Hancock.
You know, they seem to be kind of along the same lines of just that over the top bad A person that just you just can't really hate him. You just gotta love him.
Well, he's the only one that pulls out his knife.
He solves the problem with a hammer. Everything's a nail.
He's gonna bring a knife to a gunfight, but he's gonna win the fight with the knife.
Yes, he will.
I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're going to be a ghoul, then you might as well dress up in some way that really, like, you got to brand yourself so you don't just look like... Yeah. You can't just look like every other ghoul. Yeah, totally. I think he's doing it right. Like, there's... his branding is on whatever the right word is. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Explosion. Sorry, go ahead.
We got to admit, though, that Hancock is just one big, essentially immortal cosplayer.
Yeah.
That's also because I love him so much.
I mean, you do it enough, and eventually
that's all he is.
you cosplay enough, and eventually that's just the reality that surrounds you, right? Like you just become the thing.
I'm just gonna start coming to work in my Minuteman hat, and that's just gonna be what it is.
There you go. There
We're
you
just gonna have to deal with it.
go. Solved.
This is me now.
All right. Anything else, Women on Fire?
I think we're good.
Okay. Cool. All right. So let's move on to Aperture Flash, our truck driver, and
Out of the mountains.
road warrior driving through the mountains. What mountains are you in?
I just passed through Fancy Gap, and I'm free and clear.
Nice.
So I'm now in Wyethville, Virginia, and I can see my truck stop.
Awesome.
So, the companion one, it's a tough question for me. It's a toss-up between two. The first one is Arcade Gannon. And the second one, I'm going to blow your mind, is Preston Garvey.
What?
No.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait. What?
We got banned from this conversation.
Okay, listen. Preston Garvey is a deep character, goddammit.
Oh, I agree with you. I totally agree.
This man has witnessed the people he idolized from childhood join their ranks, he met his heroes, and he watched them crumble before his eyes. They built and the safety they provided crumble. And yet he still stayed strong to his Minuteman beliefs. When the leadership infantry betrayed the Minutemen and sold them out, he stayed true to his beliefs and saved as many people as he can, trying to lead them from safe haven to safe haven to safe haven, until he finally meets you. He's depressed, he's suicidal, and he's broken, and that takes a lot to keep going. He's a strong character, and as for the irritating another settlement needs your help, that's logistics work right there. And logistics work is fucking difficult. He is organizing a communication network of couriers and settlements to make sure that it's all protected. Yeah, he's only using you to protect them, but, you know, how many other people are signing up to do that?
Yeah.
He's
But
so
that's
evil
not.
now.
I mean, yeah, and that's why he's not my main favorite guy. I had to get that out there. But Arcade Gannon, I love that guy. And it's not so much for a gameplay reason, as for how he is created. Let me ask you all a question. How many video game characters, off the top of your head, can you tell me that you know is gay?
Oh yeah, it's not very many.
That's
It's
a good point,
typically
yeah.
it's typically
Yeah, I
a
can't
topic
even
that a lot
either.
of developers will stay away from because they understand that that's a minority and also
And
difficult
few of them,
things to
Kind of a
handle.
taboo thing in video games.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and the few of them that you can think of, how do you know they're gay? It's how they act, right? If they have this flamboyant...
Right, the stereotypical
behavior.
signs rather than choices in life decisions and things like that.
Arcade
Struggles.
Gannon is... Arcade Isaiah Gannon is not a character like that. You meet him in Fallout New Vegas. He is a follower of the apocalypse in the old Mormon fort in the town of Freeside, just outside of New Vegas. He's... excuse me there. Sorry, I'm still a little sick. He is... remember, a follower of the apocalypse, so he's a doctor. He's an educated man who does his best to do right by the wasteland. He uses his training to help people, but he's also aware that some people are beyond help, and the only help you give them is a bulletproof drink. Now,
Yeah.
he's a complicated character. I brought up the gay thing, the homosexuality earlier. I am not a necessarily straight man, which is, you know, so things like this resonate. The way you find out Arcade's sexuality, he doesn't tell you. He doesn't make it obvious. He doesn't go, oh, by the way, Carrier, guess what I like.
Did you know that I like men instead of women? What? I did not know.
Penis? No, he's not like that. The only way that you can find out Arcade's sexuality, and the only reference to it, is if you have the confirmed bachelor perk, which lets you flirt with men, and it gives you a damage bonus again. Excuse me. And it's brought up once.
Wow.
And I think there's like maybe a comment later on, like, how is some fine man not snatching me up, or something along those lines.
Right,
But it's
right.
not a key element of his personality. That's all he is. He's got past trauma. His father was a member of the Enclave, so he's on the run from something that he had no choice in. His father was a commanding officer at, I think it was Navarro. Correct me if I'm mistaken here, but he was killed in action. So at a very young age, he lost his father. And he's trying his best to deal with the repercussions of his upbringing, being constantly pursued by the NCR despite having done absolutely nothing wrong, and yet he still managed to educate himself in several different languages and become a doctor in the Wasteland, which I think is a very well-written character and the kind of representation that I am looking for out here.
Yeah, no, that's it's somebody who's been through a lot of struggles, has a lot of personal things that they're dealing with, is still able to make something of their lives, is, you know, taking on those things head on, and you know, props to the developers for not making a character that was, you know, obviously like their sexuality defined them. It was just another aspect of the character of who he was that happened to come up when it was appropriate. And that's how human beings are, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's great.
So, yeah, Arcade Ganon.
Now, if I can get New Vegas to actually run again, because I was streaming it for a while, I'll have to go and find him, because this was another character that I didn't actually have the time to really get into. So, man, it takes hundreds of hours to get through all of the stuff if you really want to get into all of it.
Oh, definitely. And, like, one of my gameplay elements that I love about him is that you have to either be really smart and be in really good graces with the followers of the apocalypse, or be very stupid, so stupid that he takes pity on you for him to join you.
Yeah.
You literally have to have a intelligence of less than 3 for him
Wow.
to join you if you can't beat his intelligence test.
I think I told you about my character when I first played New Vegas. I tried to make an evil character. Did I explain this? I've explained this before. Bitch Fist, yes.
Bitch Fist, right?
Bitch Fist. Yeah, Bitch Fist had a 1 intelligence, I think. So he was set.
Well, Arcade has one of the saddest endings if you're playing an evil character. You can sell him to the Legion to be Caesar's personal adopted.
Oh,
Oh, dang.
Now,
Oh, wow.
sad.
because spoilers, Caesar has a tumor in his brain and he knows it.
What? Spoilers?
Spoilers, what?
Spoilers on like a 10-year-old game? What?
And since Arcade is a doctor and he speaks fluent Latin, he is a valuable slave.
That makes sense.
And also, if the NCR win, they try him, they catch him, and they try him for crimes against the NCR because he was father.
Wow.
Dang.
Like, keep in mind, he was a child when Navarro did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not his fault, you know. Like, he's just doing the best he can.
Exactly. So, sad life for Arcade Ganon.
Cool name, though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, very.
For sure.
Cool. Did you any of the those of you who are also on this podcast? Man, words are not working today. Did anybody else have any experience with him as a character? Or did you guys skip over him?
My favorite in New Vegas. As soon as I can grab him, I do.
Oh, cool.
I didn't even know about
Yeah.
him until Aperture brought him up.
Yeah, I'm with
He's
you.
actually really
on that one,
badass
but
too.
I
He is
think.
handy with his. Sorry, I keep talking over.
No,
It's
you're
okay.
fine. You were speaking first. You go ahead.
I was gonna say he's actually really a badass too. He's really handy with his. What does he have? A plasma?
He's got a plasma pistol, yeah.
Ouch!
Right.
Yeah,
there?
I think this next playthrough I go for New Vegas, I'm gonna probably have to see if I can hand him down and just see what he's all about.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I need to. Man, if I had all the time in the world, right? I need to do new playthroughs of everything and just get to know all the characters that I never spend enough time with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anything else on him, or you ready to move on?
Well, that sounds kind of like what Aperture was talking about with the representation. It again goes along with what Bethesda is really good at in a lot of their games. Well, but it's just the series. You're good. Just the series in general, you know, with all of the different companions you can find, even going along with Ganon or Kate or Dance, who is not actually a human, but he still has the human qualities. They humanize the people that you interact with in depth as much as possible to make us, you know, it kind of pulls people in. And personally, it pulls me in with the companions, the humanization that we get from the constant being around these people, they're being companions, the fighting with them, and the everything else. It kind of sticks with me that with the games in that way.
Yeah. They do a good job giving everybody a backstory, motivations, and tying into everything else going on in the world. Like, there's usually other ties to, I don't know, things that are happening on the other side of the map with some other faction that build out and flesh out the world in a really interesting way. And show that character didn't just appear in the town you met them in, and that's the only thing they've ever experienced in their life.
Right.
They always do a good job with that. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, he's going to go on my list of other people to get to know whenever I get around to actually playing some more New Vegas. Very cool. So I was thinking about this, and you know, there's a number of characters you could name, but I think the one that I found most interesting on my Fallout 4 playthrough was Curie, and I mentioned Curie on a recent episode where BuddyBot was. Yeah, BuddyBot was getting all you know, interested in her and stuff, but yeah. But the vault that she's in is interesting. She's left there. She continues research. She's for a robot, and I guess I should go into a little bit of background in case people missed out on the episode. Forget the number of the vault because I've done so many vault episodes and all the numbers all blur together. But basically, that vault was. What was it? 71 maybe? 81? 81, that makes more sense, yeah. And that vault was supposed to be doing experiments on every single thing possibly that could go in any sort of disease you can give to humans. And the overseer basically stopped the majority of the scientists from making it into the vault. And 3 showed up. And so what they did was they took a Mr. Handy and they reprogrammed that Mr. Handy into Curie, who became kind of like a medical / scientist bot. And after the scientists passed away, she lasted another 200 years by the time you come find her, doing experiments on mole rats. And in those 200 years had cured every disease that she could possibly give the mole rats, which is super interesting. You know, like what could we do with 200 years of a scientific pursuit under the same mind is really interesting, because, you know, we only have so much lifetime until we have to pass on our own to other people. So that's a really interesting concept, but her character in particular is naive in a way. She hasn't been out in the wasteland. She's existed long enough. Maybe she has like the R2-D2 problem of not having his memory wiped enough, so he gains a certain amount of like self-awareness and autonomy, you know? But she's been around and is naive and actually genuinely cares about discovering things and helping people and curing disease and healing and all of these kinds of things. And you can bring her with you as a companion, and right off the bat she's kind of annoying because she doesn't like the aggressive, combative approach to things. She really poo-poos on that. But yeah. Yeah, she has like all of these like, oh goodness, so why would we do that way? You know, that kind of conversation stuff. But the violence. But if you keep her long enough, you come to find out that like she's starting to understand more about the way the world works, and eventually you can take her consciousness and move it over into a human synth body. I believe it's, what is it, a synth version 3 probably, I think, right?
It's irregular.
It was one that the transfer failed, and so the mind basically got wiped. Right. So you're able to make her about as human as you possibly can, or a robot that is probably more human in a lot of ways than a lot of the people you find in the wasteland, because she actually cares about people. It's kind of this interesting dynamic that's kind of flipped on its head. So I really thought that was cool. And then I believe there's even romance options, if I remember correctly, which is super weird. You know, like not
Romance
Think
a robot.
about it.
yeah, you're romancing a robot that's now in a very human-like body, but is still a robot, but
Hey, they're working on that in Japan, buddy.
Yeah, along with all the other things that we're doing in Japan. So yeah, I found that very interesting. I don't know. Did you guys get much experience with Fury?
Well, when I was running with Fury and I made her human, I took her to the comic book shop and she picked up Grognak's axe, and that became her main weapon.
That's
my
pretty
God.
freaking cool.
Amazing.
Did you make her wear the Grognak costume too?
No. No. I was actually kind of freaked out because I didn't realize Grognak's axe was a weapon you could get. So I was just like, where the hell did you find that axe?
She summoned it out of the comic book. Yeah, I love that things like that are in the game. Anybody else?
Last time I used her, I actually used a mod that essentially turned her into more of like a healing character. And so the mod gave her a specialized syringer that shot stim packs at you, and she would shoot them like at you. So if she noticed your health was low, she would shoot you with stim packs so you didn't have to use one.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, she was so handy. That was so handy. But
Ironic
you know,
wording.
thank you. When she wasn't shooting me with stim packs, though, just use normal syringe ammo. But yeah, it was really fun to like, because you could definitely see Curie using a type of weapon like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Feeling solid.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with her, and yet I never knew that that was even a thing that you could do with the syringe gun. So there's always little nooks and crannies in these games that you just don't know about until you hear somebody else say something. You're like, what? That's a thing? That's pretty cool. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? I guess that's pretty it. Oh, the other thing is, I think you, with the Machinist expansion, couldn't you adjust her body? Her robot body?
Yep.
That was a thing. Yeah, so this is all coming back to me now. So what I did was I took her like shiny, very white Mr. Handy body, and I turned her in, I gave her like tank treads and like arms with like a flamethrower and like a chainsaw or like whatever that sword thing is. I don't know. I made her look like the most ridiculous murder bot ever, but she still had the same voice and she still didn't want to fight anything.
Oh God.
It was great.
I think I did the same thing with Codsworth too. Essentially turned him into a sentry bot with this warm, welcoming British accent voice.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm now going to bring you with my flamethrower.
Yeah. Yeah, I made her just like, you know, like she became my tank and would like rush in and like beat things up with her giant robot arms. And then, you know, I'd come up behind them and shoot them. And then she'd be like, oh, this is a terrible idea. Yeah.
See, I gave her the Assaultron body. Well, okay, not the body, just the legs. So it was just a Mr. Handy head with legs.
Oh, that's pretty good. We should have a contest or something where we get everybody to jump back into Fallout 4, design like the weirdest robot, and then all vote on who the winner is. That would be super fun.
Well, we were posting settlement builds recently.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool. All right, guys. Well, I think that kind of wraps up our conversation. Oh no, we just lost Aperture, but he might pop back in. Any last words before we move on? Is there anything else anybody has from you know, playing through any of these games? Oh, he's back.
Sorry.
No problem. Anything else about companions or any other last thoughts on this?
Really are what makes Fallout so good to me, and I think it's why I've really always struggled a bit to get into 76. They just absolutely make the game. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I agree on that. The companions are probably one of the best parts of the game outside of the gameplay itself. You know, the companions definitely bring a completely new element to it.
Yeah, as I said before, I still, most of my gameplay I didn't spend with companions, and even with Fallout 4, you find Dogmeat right at the beginning, and Dogmeat became my primary companion most of the game. So it still felt like I was most of the time by myself with a dog, and I think that's like my primary way of playing these games, is almost like a because so much of the game is creepy. You never know when you're going to come across a death claw. You end up in like a ghoul-infested building, like all this kind of stuff. And doing that by yourself, even though the companions are like artificial, it's not another human being going anywhere with me, feels scarier, maybe? There's something about that I really enjoy, but I also, when I do meet certain companions, I do spend time with them as well. So I feel like there's, you know, there's kind of good to both things. But that's part of why 76 works for me, because I can, going around this gigantic world, finding everything and everyone already being dead is super creepy in a way, and still kind of works, at least from my perspective. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens with the expansion coming out. Hopefully some of the companions... I know some of the companions hang out at your base and have specific missions they can go with you on, but I don't think they can just walk around the entire world with you. At least that's my understanding so far. Could be wrong.
I'm really curious about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to find out. So, well, thank you.
Can I romance a ghoul?
Yeah, romance a ghoul. I want a game where you can play as a ghoul. I want like...
That would be awesome.
I want an expansion where you can choose to be a
so cool.
synth, a ghoul, maybe even like a refined Scorched. Wouldn't that be weird? Like, I was Scorch diseased, but they fixed me, but now I still look like a Scorch.
Somehow.
They fixed it somehow. I don't know. Or an alien. Wouldn't that be crazy? You're like, I'm just an alien running around the world. My spaceship crashed. We know they're out there. Or a robot. You could just play as a robot. That'd be great. Or a super mutant. Oh, it'd be so good. Like, as a super mutant, you can't actually have an intelligence more than 3 or something. It just, like, tops out.
You just have to be dumb.
Yeah.
So pretty much just your pen and paper.
Yeah. I guess I already designed that game, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott
Speaking of
Howard,
that,
are you listening?
Speaking of that, dude, we should. I've mentioned this a few times. We should get a game of that going. If anybody wants to DM a game of that on Discord, we can set up like a weekly get together. So
I think every time you
that'd
say
be
that, I
awesome.
always offer to DM.
yeah.
Do it again. I will DM.
The community keeps growing, so eventually we'll end up with like 3 or 4 or 5 people who are like, yeah, okay, we'll get on that. We can commit to Wednesday night.
I would totally want to play. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. We got 2. We just need a few more. So, you know what I'll do? I'll create a channel in the Discord that's Fallout pen and paper RPG or something like that. And
You already have one.
oh yeah, I do already have one because it never happened. I create so many little channels for things. Every time someone's like, "Can we have a channel for this?" Yeah, where is it? It's in here. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Role-playing chat.
role-playing chat. There it is. Yeah, we'll refresh this and see who wants to jump in and see if we can't get a game going. And Mustang, you're welcome to head that up and do whatever you want with it.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining me. Why don't we go through and say our goodbyes? And if anybody wants to get a hold of you guys, you can go let them know how to get a hold of you, or of course jump on Discord. If you guys have, if those of you in the stream or listening on the podcast have any more thoughts on any of these topics and you want to discuss them, then the Discord is absolutely the best way to do that. Just all sorts of conversations about all sorts of fun things going on all the time. So, yeah, some of our, the Nest on our stream says, I'm in, and Pieman too. So it looks like we've got enough people to start something, so we just have to coordinate a time. So let's go down the list. We'll start with, Aperture says he's down. We'll start with Aperture. Aperture, how are people going to get a hold of you? I know you're out on the road all the time, but you're always on the internet.
So if you, again, I'm on Discord constantly. Well, it's a bit too much. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at aperture_flash, and you can call me on my personal cell phone at 613. No, I'm not doing that. But if you have a CB radio, turn it to channel 19, and if I'm coming through your area, I'd be happy to break with you.
Awesome. All right, Mustang.
Just reach me through the Discord. I am on there apparently 24/7. So yeah, that's probably the best way to reach me.
Yeah, Discord. Most of us are on Discord. We at least checking in a few times a day and jumping in on conversations. So I'm going to put that again in the chat. So if anyone else wants to jump in there. Cool. Thanks, Mustang. And Mustang is, for those of you who don't know, on our Twitch stream, twitch.tv/robotsradio is our newest moderator. So thanks for doing that, Mustang. He's in there all the time, chatting it up and hanging out. Yeah. Ryuko?
I am on Twitter. It's at Hugan_Munin_. And then the Discord is obviously another good place to reach me. I'm pretty active on there. I check it as often as I can day when I'm at work. So
right.
Those two places are the best place to get a hold of me. Awesome.
And Women on Fire?
I'm, of course, on the Discord and also on Twitter as @WomanOnW. And you can also find a link there to 130,000 words about why Hancock is the best.
Are those all your notes for the show?
No.
No?
No, her notes are 35,000 pages.
that was the original work. Her notes are expanded. The full expanded version. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining again. These monthly get-togethers are super awesome. And as always, I appreciate your supporting the stream. And for anybody listening, if you are interested in joining us next month at the end of the month, go to patreon.com/Fallout Lorecast. I almost said Robots Radio, but that doesn't exist. /Fallout Lorecast. Check out the Patreon. There's a bunch of rewards for different tiers. And even if you're just interested in supporting the show for $1 a month, you get no ads and you get to be in the patron chat where we all say good morning to each other every day. And other wackiness ensues. So thank you all again for joining me. And hopefully I'll see you all again next month. And if not, that's cool too. But thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
no
for
problem.
having us.
Thank you.
Awesome. And to our listeners and our viewers on Twitch and Mixer and everywhere else that we're streaming, have a good night, and I will talk to you guys later. See ya.